in ADHD, there is, dysregulation that's happening in the processing of dopamine, right? Most people with ADHD tend to go from fawn and flight back and forth. So there's a disruption in dopamine, and dopamine is what the neurotransmitter that helps you get into action and stay in action, right? So that can either be where you're hyperfixating and it's like, going and staying in one lane, or it can be a difficulty getting into motion, and where your nervous system state is at is what's going to differentiate which way that sort of expresses.
Casey Hosmer, I am scared to ask this question, but how's your nervous system today?
Dysregulated on a daily basis. If it wasn't dysregulated, I think that then, and only then, would I know that there was a problem. I'd be like, what's going on? Something is amiss. So I have common signs of a dysregulated nervous system that I posted on my story earlier. And I asked people to send in their questions.
So interesting. Every single one of them is me.
Okay, just say yes or no. Here we go.
When I was remember when I was going through all the health stuff and I was sharing it a lot on the podcast, this is in a nutshell how I was feeling. Go for it.
Okay. You're constantly on edge or overwhelmed.
Check.
You're frequently snappy, irritable, and reactive.
Check, check, check.
You experienced chronic pain or illness.
Check.
You're highly sensitive to sensory stimuli.
Check. You
experience sleep problems and daytime fatigue.
Check.
Chronic attention and concentration problems.
Check.
Craving and extreme appetite changes.
I was having zero craving, but check.
But appetite changes for sure.
Yeah, appetite changes. Yeah. I wasn't eating anything.
Immune and hormonal symptoms.
Check. Check.
Skin and gut conditions.
Check.
Highly sensitive to other people's emotional state.
Check.
With that one, I'm always like, I'm just an empath. I honestly just can read the room. It's like, no.
So it's funny, listening to, I keep thinking okay, I think I am feeling a little bit better. And then listening to that and being like, wow, yeah, all of those things were triggered so hard. And I'm not really in that state now. What do you think your current state is out of those, 10 things? How many do you feel are red flag up at full mast today?
I'm not. The only one that doesn't resonate is the chronic illness one, but that could also be inflammation. I mean, when you think illness, you think I'm in a hospital bed, with the covers up, with the heart monitor. But no, I think it's all of them. And I think I've been in this constant state for the past decade of my life, and it is just normal. And I've been working with.
That's true.
Yeah. But
I think COVID certainly did that to a lot of people, and motherhood really just drove it home for us. So
let's
we have
bring
an awesome
on down
expert here today.
Come on down, Kaitie Childs.
Hello.
Please. All right, walk faster. Come on, Kaitie. Get your butt over here. We need you right now.
Oh my God, someone really is dysregulated today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
So people might think of this though and think, wow, what a niche field. And we talk about this a lot. Do I need another person? Do I need another facilitator in my life? I have my therapist, I have my family doctor, I have my OBGYN. Now I need a nervous system regulator on top of that. So I want to go right into this for people listening, why they should keep listening. What is nervous system dysregulation, and how does that differ from other crap that we're dealing with as moms in 2024?
Or how is some of it actually what we think is a different problem, but it's really
yes. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah. So I think that so put simply, nervous system dysregulation is when you have an open stress response in your nervous system, and everyone has an open stress response in your nervous system. Pretty much no one is immune from that, right? And it's just how active is it in your life right now, right? And so most things do come back to nervous system dysregulation because you actually have a nerve going to every single cell in your body. And so it's going to affect your emotional state, your mental state, the state of your body, your spiritual state, how connected you feel spiritually. So what does it mean to have an open stress response? What does that actually mean? your nervous system has 4 different stress responses. And then depending upon which stress response you have open is going to sort of decide, if you will, what those symptoms are in your life. So nervous system dysregulation can look really different for different people based on how your nervous system is dysregulated, which
like
I think
what door is open.
So what are the 4? Yeah, what are the 4 options? I love the game show thing we have. What's behind door number 1?
Behind door number 1.
Dun dun dun. And I think that's where so much confusion comes from. From people, is that you hear, okay, well, I have anxiety is nervous system dysregulation, but if you don't have anxiety, it's like, okay, so what are the 4 doors? The first is a freeze response. And in a freeze response, you're going to feel like you're disassociating. You're going to feel there's going to be a lot of overconsumption. So overconsumption of either social media, of food, of like on TV, what's it called? Binge watching. There's kind of a lot of like bed rotting, where you just kind of like lay in bed all day and just kind of like want to leave your body, right? So there's this experience of a lot of thoughts, right? Like a lot of internal activation, but not wanting to move, kind of being stuck and just wanting to leave your body. There's also usually chronic health issues. If you have an autoimmune disease, you have a freeze response that's open in your body. Chronic illness, so chronic fatigue, things like that. Really big gut health issues like SIBO, things like that. You'll also tend to see in a freeze response. The kind of hallmark of a freeze response is feeling stuck. So if you think about it, if you were out in the wild, right, and your nervous system will choose the stress response for you that it thinks is most adaptive or the best way to protect you in that situation. So a freeze response is, hey, I actually can't protect myself in this situation. So the best way that I can protect myself is to freeze, is to not move. And so the way that actually shows up in your life now, right, because we're not, out in the wild, is, okay, well, let me just like sit on the couch and not move, right? So, and oftentimes when people have a freeze response, there's a lot of, guilt or shame with it. Like, am I lazy? Like, I want to get up and do, like, I want to get up and do things, but, I just kind of feel like I can't, right?
Does that have a correlation to throat chakra and people like not speaking their mind and that rabbit hole as well?
Similar sometimes, but not always. Okay. So that one is a little bit more fawn response, which we'll go into next. And oftentimes people will have a freeze and a fawn
together
at the same time.
I feel like I do both of those, but keep going.
So in a freeze response, oftentimes there's this big experience of like feeling lazy and feeling like, just feeling guilty for it. Like you want to get up and move. And the
feeling
important
worthless.
Thing, yes,
like, what am I good for? Exactly, I can't do anything. Yeah.
Exactly. Like you're just kind of watching TV and the kids are just running around and you're like, oh, I should get up and do the things, right? But
I think so many people have that. It's like the laundry's piling up, the dishes are piling up, the kids' school projects aren't done. Like, and it's just easier to do nothing. And that is so anxiety inducing. But a lot of times, sometimes you just need to stop.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a huge experience of overwhelm too. Like it's like you're standing at the bottom of a mountain and it's just like, I don't know how I'm ever going to get up there. Right. And what your mountain is can vary, but that's
what's interesting about that is then at least for me, it's like, okay, then I have tried to be like, all right, if I'm feeling this way, I need to give myself the time to do that. Sometimes I certainly can't, but I try to. And then I like reset the next day or the next week. And I'm like, this stuff is so easy. Why was that so hard?
You're in your way.
And then that's when I realized, oh, that wasn't me just being lazy, or that wasn't me just like not wanting to do it. Like that was like a physical response to
something.
These tasks at hand. Yeah.
Or something else. Or something with Mark, or something with your family, or something with the house, or something with school.
Well, that's what I mean. Like something triggered me to physically not be able to do those things.
And I think that is actually when you can have that awareness when you're in it, that is what helps you begin to shift out, is when you're in it, in the space of like, okay, I feel worthless right now. I feel lazy. Like I want to get up and do things. When you can have the awareness that my nervous system is protecting me right now. Like the reason that I'm doing this is because my nervous system is reading that it needs to protect me and that this is the best way that it thinks that it can protect me. And it's doing that from something that got flagged in the past. So like you said, Kaitie, like it could be a fight, with your partner. It could be, something from one of your kids. Sometimes it can just be that there's too much sensory things going on. Like you're just so overwhelmed. Like the kids are yelling and there's this to do. And that, there's just so much that the system just sort of collapses.
Let's do this because I'm thinking in terms of the 4 doors. Let's stay with each door. Okay. And let's just complete the thought. So it is one compact thing for everyone. So if you are a freeze and you say, yes, Kaitie, this is happening to me every single day, how do you start the road to recovery?
Okay. So in a freeze response, there's a couple things, right? So one, a big piece is also going to be what's happening in the cells of your body. This is going to be more so if you're in a chronic freeze. So if you've been in a freeze for like years, right? Or months, and you're like, I just cannot get up, right? So that's going to be less if you sort of go into a freeze, for maybe a week and then, kind of pop out, right? So if you're in a chronic state of freeze, what's happening in the cells of your body? What does that mean? The cells of your body have their own nervous system too, right? So as above, so below, your entire body has its own nervous system. And then the cells of your body have their own little nervous system too. And so when there are detox issues, when there's chronic health things going on, it's going to dysregulate the nervous system inside of your cells. So things like a mold exposure from like a seedy college dorm from however many years ago, right? Like that can still be affecting your nervous system, right? Like, so there's lots of things, heavy metals, parasites, Lyme disease, co-infections, environmental toxins like glyphosate, all of those kinds of things can be actually keeping you in a freeze state. So even if you are doing the emotional work, like the nervous system regulation piece, sort of in the emotional realm, but not also focusing on what's happening in the cells of your body, you will stay in a freeze until the cells in your body come out of a freeze.
Okay, so but in that's a huge you just described what I feel like so many people, excuse me, say, oh, I was diagnosed with depression and now I'm on antidepressants. And people need antidepressants. People do have depression. But what you're saying is sometimes the surface is being diagnosed, but we're not getting to root cause and we're not fixing the deeper issue that is cellular that could fix this problem. And that is what we talk about so much is the functional medicine, the Eastern medicine, the more natural approach to finding root cause as opposed to treating symptoms. And again, people do have depression and people do need antidepressants. And that is what medicine does. And that is an amazing thing.
One's better than the other. Just sometimes you can couple them together to really get a complete picture.
Right. 100%. So whenever someone has depression, they're always in a dorsal vagal nervous system state. So when you're in a dorsal vagal nervous system state, you have a freeze response open. You have either a freeze or a fawn response, right? So everything's connected, right? And it is, and so there are other things that can be going on too, like if you have parasites, and for the most part, if you've never done a parasite cleanse, most people have parasites, like indigenous cultures for, however long have done parasite cleanses.
If you eat raw sushi, I mean,
yes. I mean, we parasite cleanse dogs on a regular basis, like you deworm dogs on a regular basis. It's just, something that's part of it. But especially if you're in a dorsal vagal response, you're going to be more prone to parasites.
Do you have a parasite cleanse you like? And how often do you parasite cleanse?
So I like the Cell Core Parasite Cleanse. That's what I use with clients. It's really, really good. It's a functional medicine supplement.
What does that entail?
It's a month.
This is a new world to me.
Yeah. So you take supplements morning and evening, and then throughout the day. And so morning and evening, you take supplements. They're herbal, and they are designed to basically be neurotoxins for the parasites to immobilize them and kill them. And then during the day, you take binders to go in and sort of suck them up so that your system can pass them out easily.
And it's 30 days, no drinking, and you can't be pregnant when you do it, correct?
Correct. Yeah. You don't want to be pregnant when you do it because parasites hold a lot of heavy metals. And so you don't want to release any heavy metals into your body when you're pregnant.
So this is something that could help you kind of get out of this freeze response.
But to go on that point, I don't think, and Kaitie, correct me if I'm wrong, there's any downside. So like if you just wanted to do it and you don't know if you have parasites and you're like, I'm kind of feeling icky, it is all natural. And how often would you do it?
Yep. So if you have never done one before, you would do one for a month and then, maybe a month or two later, do it again, because there's actually parasites have life cycles. Like if you think about like the life cycle of a like there's the little egg and then larva and then full on parasite. So you want to do it several times back to back. And then on an ongoing basis, I do it twice a year. Just to kind of keep things clear. But to answer your question, the reason that it can help with depression, parasites actually eat serotonin. And most of your serotonin is like your happy hormone, if you will. It's a neurotransmitter, but that's like what people call it, is the happy hormone. And 90% of it is produced in your gut. And so parasites that live in your gut will actually eat your serotonin. So a lot of times the problem functionally is not that your body's not producing serotonin. It's that you have parasites that are eating the serotonin that your body is producing.
Well, and so isn't that interesting?
Isn't that interesting? And so then when you flush the parasites out, now you can actually receive the benefit of the serotonin that your body is already producing. And then now you can start to turn over your gut microbiome, right? So when there's parasites, there's always leaky gut. There's always going to be, chronic health issues. There can be autoimmune disease. And so parasites can be kind of a root cause for a lot of things. And so flushing those out can, have sweeping effects.
So why, I know I'm getting a little bit deeper now, but why isn't this accepted more in medicine? Like, why am I not just going to my primary care doctor and they're telling me like, oh, it's been a year. It's time for your routine parasite cleanse.
I think it's just not on the radar of most like Western medicine doctors. If you go to a functional medicine doctor, it's definitely on their radar. But if you go to a regular doctor, that's kind of just not in their repertoire of things that they're looking for.
But urine from parasites does something to humans. And I was just trying to Google it and I couldn't find it, but I've seen it places before. Like parasite urine causes something in the human body. And then they also can be attributed to cravings of sugar and carbs.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So they produce biofilms, right? Mm-hmm. So they pee and they poop just like any other animal would, right? And so that creates all kinds of inflammation in the body. And they also, this is really wild, but they produce their own neurotransmitters and have the ability to essentially hijack your nervous system. So they will speak to your nervous system.
Too much. Oh my goodness.
Literally the end of the world is here.
I know.
The other thing though, there has been a connection between parasites and cancer, certain cancers.
So I hadn't heard of that one specifically, but I would believe it because it creates,
it wreaks havoc. Not believe
everywhere. It, but it just inflammation
does have a correlation to cancer. I mean, that has been studied.
Yeah, I mean, inflammation is the root cause of any disease or illness that's in the body.
All right, so we're doing parasite cleanse.
Yes, and so so to your point, they can create sugar cravings and things like that because they also feed on the carbs, and so it can create a lot of times if you have if you get hangry or have a lot of blood sugar dysregulation.
There is a bug telling you that you need sugar.
Truly.
It's a lot. It's really like a bizarre concept. And I feel like I'm in Men in Black right now. And there's like an alien in my brain controlling it. But so what else for a freeze person? So we're parasite cleansing and you do need a practitioner to prescribe Cellucor.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. They can reach out to me if they would like to parasite cleanse. You can find me on Instagram or TikTok or wherever.
All of Kaitie's information is in the show notes. Yes, if you do want to connect.
So detoxing to help, with the nervous system inside of your cells. The next big thing when you're in a freeze response is getting yourself into motion, like physically moving your body. And I know that sounds like a drag. I know, I know. And I'm sorry. And it's like the least, it's the thing that you're going to have the least motivation
but it makes
for.
Sense. My husband always says that motion creates motion. Mm-hmm. It's like if you it's really just that step to like getting yourself up and going out and doing it and just taking that walk. And then you always like feel better after it. But it's that first step that's the hardest.
Totally. The other thing too with this, and this is something that I see with a lot of clients, is that they'll get this like influx of motivation and they'll be like, okay, I'm going to go work out. Like, I'm just going to do it. Like, I know that I need to get into motion. And so I'm going to do that like hot power yoga class, or I'm going to like join CrossFit, and they'll do it for a week or 3 weeks. And then, everything kind of fizzles out and they're, back to where they are. Part of the reason that happens is because the way that your nervous system is protecting you is by keeping you not in motion. So if you go out and do this like vigorous, high intensity workout, your nervous system's like red flag, red flag, red flag. No. Like, get her back on the couch right now.
Yeah.
Right. So when you have a freeze response, your best friend is going to be like a 7-minute body weight workout at home, right? So something like,
and that sounds daunting, easy. But just do it.
Yeah, like something super easy. So it's consistency and in that consistency, it should feel almost so easy that you feel silly for doing it, right? And this is specifically just with a goal of getting yourself out of a freeze response, right? Like if you want to like build muscle or, like that's a totally different, like a totally different recommendation, right? But just for getting you out of a freeze response.
Yeah. This is just like shaking it out.
Yes, exactly.
Like just getting that. Yeah.
I kind of think about it. It's almost like, like if your nervous system was like your parents when you're like a teenager, it's like you want to try and like sneak out of the house without letting them know, right? It's like you want to like,
you don't want your body to know that you're up to something.
That's right.
You just want to like shake it up a little bit.
I never did that.
Well, I did.
And you're just fine.
Right. Just fine. Made it out of
just fine.
All right. So we got freeze. Who's next?
Door number 2.
Door number 2. Okay. So the next one is a fawn response. This one is actually probably the most common.
And this is, I'm sorry, you're saying fawn response?
Yes.
So this one is new because it was typically fight or flight. Mm-hmm. So fawn and freeze are kind of new.
So so you're correct in that fawn is newer. So fawn is actually related to the attachment system. So it's a stress response related to the attachment system. And so it can overlap any of the other stress responses. So you can have this one and a freeze and a flight and a fight, which again,
we love like a side door. We love a cocktail.
It's got side doors into the other hallways as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
Listen, it's great. More access.
That's right. So a fawn response, you're going to be a people pleaser. So you're going to, struggle to say no. You're going to want to say
raising
yes
her hand. I actually changed my gaze. I'm looking at Kaitie and I changed my gaze to look at Casey, and sure enough, she throws her hand up. Yeah.
So you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle with boundaries. You're going to struggle with boundaries with people, like in relationships.
I struggle with boundaries, but people still think I'm a bitch. So I'm like, I'm clearly doing something wrong. But keep going. Sorry. Oh my God.
So you'll tend to have difficulties with executive functioning things. So that like the boundaries issue also shows up with time. So kind of being able to get things done, starting projects and then not finishing projects. So kind of
okay, but is it fawn or am I ADD, or are they connected as well? Because that's me. Okay, so there we go. Yes,
there's a very large portion of the people in the trauma world that think that ADHD is part of a stress response. Yeah, that it's a presentation.
Oh, okay.
So do you believe people are born with that, or ADHD or ADD is a stress response?
I believe that it can be both. You can be born with open stress responses.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you give me the groundwork real quick, the difference between ADD and ADHD?
Yes.
So right now it's all just ADHD. So it's attention deficit hyperactive. Yeah. So there used to be a differentiation and now it's just ADHD.
Oh, okay. So we're just adding things everywhere. We're adding letters in the acronyms. We're adding
just all switching up.
Stress response. Because Yeah, I always thought like ADHD, and this might be weird, but G, tell me if you thought this, is like the hyper, like you're a little bit more hyper, and ADD is like they just can't focus, but they're more calm.
Yeah.
That's like what I remember when we were in school thinking, but I don't know.
Yeah.
The ADHD I saw as like you get hyper fixated on things, where ADD is like you actually can't fixate or focus on anything because you're bouncing all over the place.
Yeah.
I could be completely wrong. That was just my understanding.
Yeah. So, what's kind of happening there, like, from like a deeper root. So in ADHD, there is, dysregulation that's happening in the processing of dopamine, right? This is kind of a left tangent out of fawn, but it's connected to fawn. Most people with ADHD tend to go from fawn and flight, back and forth. So there's a disruption in dopamine, and dopamine is what is the neurotransmitter that helps you get into action and stay in action, right? So that can either be where you're hyperfixating and it's like, going and staying in one lane, or it can be a difficulty getting into motion. And I think where your nervous system state is at is what's going to differentiate which way that sort of expresses. The hyperfixation also, so in a fawn response, the way that your system is protecting you is by reading information, right? So it's like your nervous system is, scanning your environment for, okay, this twig, snapped over here. Do I need to protect myself from this thing over here? Like, let me listen to this, right? So there's also tends to be, sensitivity, to sensory things.
To things that aren't typically even threats, but the body is saying, wait, I need to analyze this and make sure it's not.
Yes. And the reason that it's doing that is because in a fawn response, your nervous system decided, okay, I can't fight back. I can't run away in this situation. And so the best thing that I can do is read and evaluate, kind of read the room,
face
right?
The threat.
Yes.
Identify.
Exactly. And so in the stress response, it's the identify and evaluate stage, right? So it's let me read the room. Let me figure out what their motives are. Like, let me feel into them. A lot of people with a fawn response, like being an empath is a stress response. Like if you're an empath or a highly sensitive person, you're in a dorsal vagal response, and oftentimes you have a fawn response.
But if you talk to like a psychic or something, they're like, oh, an empath, like you're like Mother Earth, like you can just feel everyone in the room and whatever, but it's a neurological response.
Yeah. I mean, so I think everything is connected, right? Your energy system moves through your nervous system, right? So I don't think I don't think those two things are separate, and I include like a huge spiritual focus, like into a lot of the work that I do, because it is all connected. Yeah. But yes, if you do, like, when you talk to a lot of people, though, like, that it's something separate, but it's a nervous system dysregulation thing.
What does a fawn look like in a disagreement with a spouse or a partner?
It looks like either agreeing and going along with, even though internally you don't agree, or just being quiet and shutting down. Mm-hmm. So it looks like saying yes, even if you mean no, and just kind of, like trying to make peace. Things okay, trying to make peace. And
is that kind of freeze too?
So the shutdown is actually a little bit more freeze. So it can be both.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cause my husband tends to shut down in conversations, and I don't know if that is just man or freeze.
Man.
Shutting down will always be a stress response.
He has I know I have a window, and he doesn't like to harp on things. And then I think it might just be man, because I keep going, and he's like, we literally just discussed that. So I think it might be man. Gee, what does Mark do?
Mark needs time to think, where I'm like, no, we need to figure this out right now.
Yesterday, like we're late.
Yeah. And he'll be like, okay, well, I just need, which I think was something that I had to figure out in the beginning, that like, if he says he needs time to think about it, then he really does actually come back to it. Where like in the beginning of our relationship, I was like, this is him trying to just get out of having this discussion or whatever. But he really does come back. And it's actually like a very thoughtful response. And then I can see that like my words are actually able to get through to him better because he has had time to sort through things. So yeah.
I see him in like a dark room in your house with like the yarn going to things and like circling things.
100%. No, he is that picture of Alan from The Hangover where he's like this, like at the card table, and there's just like numbers and letters and equations floating in the background. That is Mark's brain at all times.
Kaitie, what's your partner like?
So currently single, recently divorced. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, I hope that you're doing well, and I hope that you're happy, and I hope this is for the absolute best for you.
Yeah.
It was for the better. Yeah. It was a congratulations.
Congratulations.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
Congratulations to you. And you're helping so many people. So I don't know how much you pull from experience, but I'm sure it's a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is a lot.
But we don't need to harp on that. But let's go to what your response is. What's your response? Who are you? We didn't get through all the doors yet, but who are you?
Yeah, we haven't. I had all of them, which is why I do this work. Yeah. So I had all 4 stress responses, and I had a disorganized attachment, which is a blend of all of the insecure attachment styles. So I literally had to map and navigate every nook and cranny of the nervous system, which is
so you are literally the expert.
That's why I'm really good at what I do.
Not only studied it, you've lived it yourself too.
Okay, but wait, here's a question though, and I know we're getting off topic, but I do want to talk about this. For someone who says, maybe I do have all the things, how did you know I'm not just depressed, I'm not just anxious? Like what made you go deeper? Because I'm assuming that this was not common knowledge to you. No. Nervous system regulation when you were experiencing all 4, when you were wearing all 4 hats.
Well, you had said to us too that you really got into this because of motherhood.
Yeah.
Which, as you know, is a SHIT storm of emotions and nervous system dysregulation and all of it. So yeah, that would make total sense in my mind.
And if you don't like mind sharing, what were you trying to do as fixes that weren't working? And then you went to this route.
Yeah. So at the time, my youngest was almost 2. He's 9 now. And at the time, I owned a wellness healthcare practice and, new mom. And I felt like I was just kind of drowning. Like I had deep depression, I had crippling anxiety, and I would bounce back and forth between the two. I had chronic health issues, and I was in the functional medicine world, and I was like doing all of the functional medicine things, right? And none of it was working. I didn't feel any better. And it just felt like every day was on repeat. Like it was like I was just on this carousel, and it was like rinse and repeat over and over again. And, I'd get to bedtime every day, and it was like, where did the day go? And I would like simultaneously dread the next day, and then also feel guilty for like missing the whole day, because I knew that I'd missed the whole day while I was like drowning in my shit, but I didn't know how to not be in my shit.
What you just said, I feel like so many women agree with a resounding yes, but are so afraid to say out loud. For shame, guilt, anything else. Oh, you don't have it that. Look at you. You're a beautiful girl. You have look at your beautiful children. You don't have a problem in the world.
But there's nothing more like, I don't know what the word is. I don't want to say worse, but there's nothing more suffocating than the feeling of going to bed and knowing I'm already exhausted tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because you just know that you're on this like rinse and repeat cycle. Like you were saying of like, I know I've tried so hard today and feel like I didn't get anywhere. And so there's nothing I can do to make it any better tomorrow too, probably. And it's just,
And then and then going to sleep, you find the Instagram video that says, you only get 18 summers. You only get one first school. You only get one first brown.
Enjoy it while you can.
I hate myself.
Not helpful. Yeah. And it feels, it feels like grains of sand, like running through your hands and the guilt. And I just knew all I knew was that I wanted to be more present. And I knew that I had lost myself, and I didn't even know if I ever really knew who I was to begin with. And that's a big experience in a fawn response.
Wow. Okay. I have a friend that's going through that exact thing right now, that she is having this kind of like emotional breakdown over motherhood in general. And as she's like peeling back the layers, she's like, wait, maybe this isn't just motherhood. Maybe this is me. And I've been pushing it down for so many years, and I never even really know what feeling like myself is. It's not that motherhood took it from me. It's that I don't even really know what it was to be able to get back to it, you know, because so much is like, oh, you want to get back to feeling like yourself, back to feeling like yourself. And she's kind of like, what is that?
Because to your point, Gianna, like, okay, when Gianna and I were living in Philly, we were going out for drinks every night. We were going to the beach every weekend. We were meeting boys. We were having fun. We were going on like lunch dates. But it's like, is that who I was? Or was I just 22 living in the city with girlfriends, and that was fun at the time and nothing else? I didn't need anything else to fill my cup. So if you have that fixated in your mind, like, oh, I'm not going out for drinks anymore. Like, is that who you are? Or is that what you used to do?
Yeah. Right. So then you go back to that and you think, why isn't this making me happy anymore? Why am I so depressed? What's wrong with me? What's happening? Well, it's like, well, right. That person you thought you were, that actually may not be the thing. You were kind of just doing that because you are the fawn response. You're people pleasing. You're trying to make everybody else around you happy, fitting into what they think you should be doing in your 20s. Is that what this kind of is, Kaitie? Is that right?
That's exactly it.
Interesting.
It's sort of taking on these identities and doing what it is and being who it is that you think that you should do, right? And so in the fawn response, essentially what you're doing is you're trading your authenticity for safety along the way.
So it's, I should be a size 4. I should be happy all the time. I should put makeup on in the morning. I should call all my relatives. I should buy presents for everyone in my family for Christmas. Like, it's those things that you want acceptance.
Things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Trading authenticity for safety. Let me ask you this. Who creates that feeling of not being safe? Is that 100% created by external forces, or is that your own internal brain doing that to you, or a mix of both?
Is it your mother?
So 100%. So it is you that creates that, right?
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. where that comes from, or this like taking on of other, people's expectations and things. In a fawn response, what your nervous system does is it weakens your energetic boundaries and it weakens your nervous system boundaries. And it does that so that you're able to read people's energy, right? So that you can get a read on them and get a feel on them. The effect of that is that you end up taking on other people's identities and beliefs and things because the way that your nervous system is protecting you is it says, okay, it's not safe for me to be confrontational here. So instead of being confrontational, I'm going to agree with them, right? So I'm just going to agree with you on everything that you say. And so what happens in time, your subconscious starts to lose the ability to hold one truth, like to anchor into, okay, this is my viewpoint. And I can, strongly, like hold this one viewpoint and be able to articulate that to someone else in conversation, right? Which is why, in relationship, like in a partnership, in a romantic relationship, it can become difficult to, if you have a fawn response, to now, be able to hold one viewpoint in relationship with another person and kind of feel like you're being heard and feel like you're being seen, because your nervous system is subconsciously, right? So like without consulting you, right? Like you're not conscious that this is the process that's happening. It's agreeing with them on some level. Now that's a very
you want to just stay alive.
You want, yes, that's the way your nervous system is protecting you, right? So your system just wants to fix it, right? It just wants to fix the problem. Like let there not be any, any confrontation. And where the fawn response often comes from, right? So I said it's an attachment-based stress response. And so often it comes from, in in childhood, right? So oftentimes, when you're a child, the thing about, we'll look at this like from you as the mother standpoint first. When a baby is born, they don't have access to one of their nervous system states yet. Mm-hmm. And the nervous system state that they don't have access to yet is the nervous system state that's kind of like the brake pedal, on the nervous system. So it's the one that really allows the system to calm down. That part of the nervous system doesn't start to develop really until like age 3 and then on. So what happens when a child is crying or a child is dysregulated, all of that energy, in order to ground that energy and in order for the nervous system to come back to a state of regulation, all of that energy has to go through the nervous system of mom, which is why when you become a mom, it is incredibly dysregulating and stressful, and health things can pop up. And, because if you already have stuff in your nervous system and then now you have, a crying baby or, a whining toddler on top of all of the other life stuff, that actually has to move through your system. Right. So what happens in that experience is, that as a child, if there's an experience, and it can be either a consistent experience or it can be like a singular experience, right? So it's kind of like a volume dial, not like an on-off switch. You can kind of think about it like
kind of
that.
How did I have to keep dad happy? How did I have to keep mom happy? Grandma, aunt, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite memes that go around the internet is like, can someone please tell my nervous system that I am not in fact being chased by a tiger, but my toddler is just trying to put their shoes on?
Yes, exactly.
Because of how triggering that can be. And you're like, we have to go. Why? Like it just
because we're
brings
slaves
up
to the clock. I mean, we're slaves to the schedule, which then it's like, well, you need a schedule and you need a routine for your mental well-being and
So Kaitie, I really want to hear from you, like how you were able to strip all this back and then get back to like what you felt yourself was. But first, I think we'll do ourselves a disservice if we don't open door number 3 and door number 4.
Let's fix fawn. Let's fix the fawn.
To fully understand that. But then go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, let's fix fawn and then back to Kaitie.
Okay. So the biggest piece to a fawn response, to closing a fawn response, is repairing, I'm going to use a fancy word here, but repairing proprioception in the nervous system.
What now?
Yeah. What is that? So what that means, proprioception is the way that your nervous system is able to tell where you are in time and space, right? So it's how your system knows what reality you're in. Like I am here, I'm in this room, right? So when you have a fawn response, you will see through the lens of other people, right? So if you are posting something to social media, you'll look at the photo or you'll watch the reel and imagine as if you're the person that's watching it, right? Or you'll read a text message back and you'll read it as if you're your partner that's going to be reading it, right? Or you're your friend that's going to be reading it. What that does is it affects proprioception in your nervous system, where your nervous system gets confused about, okay, who am I, right? So every time you do that, your system now starts to say, who am I?
Yeah.
Right. Which is why in a fawn response, you start to lose that, sort of connection with self. So repairing proprioception, the biggest thing that you can do to repair proprioception, or the easiest thing that you can do, your hands and your feet have the largest amount of proprioceptive receptors. So when you notice that you are like strongly into people pleasing, if you like take your shoes off and just allow your feet to feel the sensation of a rug or something that has texture, and just bring your awareness to the sensation on your feet, it's going to give your nervous system information about like, I am me, I am in my body, and it's going to help you be able to hold one singular viewpoint.
That's wild.
Is this why grounding has become popular?
Similar, yes.
Yeah, yes. We're just little like Bambis prancing around on our grass in the morning, getting the morning sun. What can you do with your hands? Because like, can you see like you're in an argument with like your mom and you just go in and start rubbing the carpet and she's like, you're going to get a rug burn. What is going on? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, you can just kind of, go like this with your hands, or, you can like, I have clients that like to put all their fingers together and then just kind of make this motion. It can kind of feel
kind of like
calming.
bouncing the fingers back and forth. Yeah.
That's interesting because my hands are always tight. My fingers are always tight and I'm such a fawn.
And so the key is keeping your awareness on the sensation as you do that.
And maybe like affirmations or journaling could help with a fawn of like how you're truly feeling, and maybe do the Mark approach of like, okay, this is what I feel, but I'm not going to text them until an hour or tomorrow or whatever.
Yeah. So fawn response is the one that's kind of the most complicated, if you will, to close because it overlaps all of the other stress responses. But yes, you're exactly right. Getting a clear sense of who you are apart from other people is a massive part of it, like figuring out who you are.
All right, G, your question for Kaitie. So we're going to take, we're halfway through all the doors.
Okay.
And now we're going to go back to
halfway through
Kaitie.
all the doors and we only have 15 minutes left. So door number 3.
We're going to have it. This one's going overboard today.
Yeah.
Okay. So next one is a flight response. So flight response is go, 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 hustle energy. Like there's a lot of, feeling like you never have enough time and there's urgency. Like everything feels like an emergency. Everything needs to happen now.
I'm like
get in the car, put your shoes on, get in the car, let's go. And feeling like if you're late, feeling, a sense of panic or, so there's that piece. There's this tendency to really like a to-do list and like check things off, like need to go, but the to-do list never ends, right?
Constant.
So you're always adding. You're adding. Welcome to multiple stress responses. So you're always like adding something else onto the list. Tend to see insomnia with a flight response, tend to see things like restless legs. So you'll be kind of, jittery, like kind of always moving. Maybe if you sit at a desk, like, kind of tapping a knee. So those are kind of some of the hallmark things. A lot of also anxiety. So if you're experiencing anxiety, you're in a flight response.
And then how do you fix it?
Yeah. How do you close that door?
Yeah. So a flight response is actually also usually connected to the attachment system. So working with attachment. But in a flight response, the biggest thing is grounding. So in a flight response, the energy is moving through your system in the opposite way than that it needs to, if you will. So it's sitting with the resistance to you starting to move slower. And this is so much easier said than done, right?
Is this why I walked out of a yoga class a few weeks ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes. Yeah. So it's witnessing when you're in that space, and it's okay to still walk out of the yoga class and be like, I need to get out of here, right? There's this experience of needing to escape, like needing to leave, like where's the exit? I gotta go, right? Safety isn't getting up and running away, right? And so it's okay to do that, but it's keeping the awareness in your body, in the sensation as you run away, right? So letting your nervous system register, hey, we actually got away, right? So as you're leaving the yoga class, instead of like, your mind racing with like all of like the next things to do, connecting to the sensation and feeling, each foot, as you like leave and walk out kind of thing. There's a lot more that goes into it, but these are fundamentally what I do that's different is I look at, okay, how can we permanently change the state of the nervous system so that this is not a repeat experience in your life and not just, okay, how do I get out of this one yoga class? Right. So the tools that I'm giving are, okay, like what can I do now in this moment to create safety, but to truly close the stress response for each of these? There's a whole lot more, that goes into it so that you can permanently change the state of your nervous system. So that's not a repeat experience.
And
for
flight in an argument with a partner looks like,
it looks like wanting to run away, like wanting to leave. Like I can't do this anymore. I like this conversation is over. I've got to go.
Got it. And that is because they feel unsafe.
Yes.
And maybe don't have the communication tools to communicate.
Often. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then last one.
So if you're dealing with that with your partner, I'm just thinking for other listeners that might have this issue to say like, okay, I understand you can't finish this conversation now, but can you tell me that you will at least give me 10 minutes later tonight after we put the kids to bed where we can come back to it? Is that an appropriate way to handle somebody who's in that flight response?
Would it resonate with a flight person? Yeah.
Yes, it would. Yeah. Because in a flight response, there's still the desire to connect, right? So it's not that there's a lack of a desire to connect. It's just that my system is saying right now, I have to leave, right? And it's usually because there's a flight response connected to love, right? Connected to connection. And so for some reason, love and connection is not safe. And so when that gets triggered, it's okay, I have to get out of here because right now this isn't, I don't have the capacity, to move all of this right now, right? So if someone's in a flight response, trying to keep them corralled in a room will make it worse, right? So yes, allowing them to leave. And then also, when not dysregulated, I would say having an agreement, like having a conversation, an agreement about, okay, this is your pattern and I see this and this is what it does for me. When you do need to leave, it makes me feel like I get abandoned or, whatever it brings up for.
And I guess that could be from like watching parents do that. Like the mom being like, you never come home for dinner. And the dad's just like, I can't do this. And like storming out of the house.
Yeah. So can I run an example by you and you can kind of help talk me through this? Because I feel like something that I deal with is probably not a unique situation. Or as Casey always says, you're not special. I'm not special. I'm not the only one.
In the nicest way possible.
In the nicest way possible. So for me, I feel like I am running around a lot. If we're getting ready to go somewhere, I'm very lucky. Mark is very helpful and does help me with things. But I do feel like it's my solid responsibility. So even though he does think like I have to check his work and I have to make sure that this and and I'm getting myself ready. And are the kids dressed? And do the kids have what they need? And do I have everything? Where did I put my keys? Did I put them here? So that's already a high stress situation.
Yeah.
And it's also the kind of things where like, it doesn't matter if you start 2 hours in advance or if you start 10 minutes in advance, there's always going to be those little things at the end. And I can't seem to get myself away from that stress at the end. And then when I finally say, okay, I've checked off all of my boxes, everything that we need is done, let's start going. And then someone's like, well, let me use the bathroom real quick. Or, oh, you know what? I just want to send this one email. Or, oh yeah, do we get enough snacks? Should I look at more? That sends me into a tizzy where I'm like, I thought we just closed this loop and now there's more. And now you're creating more issues. Like, and the kind of like, I feel unsafe being stuck in that room and not being able to move on to the next thing. Like get in the car, get on the boat or get wherever we're going.
In a fawn response, we're going to take this to like what's happening in the nervous system first and then kind of give it some context. So in a fawn response, the fawn response like out in the wild is I'm the prey and there's a predator, right? So there's a predator and I'm the prey. And so when part of that experience is this feeling of powerlessness, right? Or feeling like you can't move energy in a direction, like, or get things, everything moving in a way that you want or like. And part of that, the reason for that, is because of how the nervous system has moved those energetic boundaries in and, changed the nervous system boundaries, right? So there's kind of this experience of like not feeling like you can get things to move in the direction that you want. And the reason for that is because in the nervous system, the energy is not moving in the direction that it wants to go. There's sort of all of these like leaks and holes, if you will. So the way that shows up in life looks like, okay, I want to get all of the kids out the door and in the car with your shoes on and your backpacks and your water bottles and the snacks and the things, and feeling like you're playing whack-a-mole, right? Like I can't get this thing over here and this thing over here and this thing over here and this thing over here. And so there's no quick hack for that one. It's working with the whole. It's working with the whole like fawn response. It's maybe
just understanding this is a stress response. There's not actual tigers circling me in my home right now, or to say like, okay, this is why I'm feeling this way. And as soon as you acknowledge it, you can kind of like watch that flame start to simmer a little.
Yes, you start to take your power back the second that you acknowledge and diagnose, if you will, like, oh, okay, this is the door that I'm in, right? Like I've opened this door.
All right. Door number 4.
Okay. Door number 4, fight response. So a fight response is, okay, the best way for me to respond in this situation, right, is to fight. The way that tends to present is you're going to feel frustrated. You're going to feel angry. You'll struggle with perfectionism. So it can either be like, I need to dot every I and cross every T in order to feel safe, like in order to feel like things are good enough. It can look like, wanting things to go in a specific way, right? So like things can only be this one way. And if it's not this one way, there is no other way. And now I'm frustrated because there's one line, right? And if you think about it, like in a fight response, like you have to win, right?
That's just like life with a toddler. Like nothing.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to think about
it's going to be. You will get there, my friend.
No. I'm trying to think about it in terms of like with me and Eric, or like in situations in my adult life, or like in the workplace. It's like I play out these movies in my mind of how things are going to be, and I can see years down the road of like what is going to be the best path. And then if my pesky husband says I don't like that idea, I'm like, but why? I'm already, we're already aging on our front porch, like with our grandkids.
Right. You're like, I already bought the outfits that we'll be wearing.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. Actually, for sure.
Yeah. Actually.
But I don't get like frustrated. I just try to over convince that my way is the right way.
So what you're describing is a fawn fight.
Oh, blend. Yes. I literally am all of these. I didn't think I was all of these. I am. Does fight sometimes get confused or mesh with narcissism? Like do fight people maybe get mislabeled narcissists?
So people that have narcissistic personality disorder always have a very strong fight response, right? So you can think of all of these stress responses like volume dials, right? The volume dial in a fight response is all the way up, right? Narcissism is a spectrum. Everybody's got, some tendencies, right? So to answer your question, yes, right? But that doesn't mean that if you have a fight response, you are a narcissist, right? Volume dials, it's on a spectrum.
But then, Casey, do you get upset when, even if you do win, quote unquote, do you get upset when that other person doesn't love it?
Yes. And then I worry endlessly about potential resentment down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I feel that way too.
Yeah. Like win, I hate that word, but like sometimes it's as simple as like, I have a plan and Eric doesn't, and he doesn't necessarily disagree with me, but he wants to kick the tires on the plan before we get a tattoo of the plan. And I'm like, can we just do the plan? It's going to save a lot of time and a lot of stress and a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of stress. And I just want to do the plan because the plan's going to work.
Get on board.
That is, I think that's man again.
Yeah.
That's behind door number 5. That's man.
Man.
Do you feel that,
5,
G?
Man. Yeah, I feel where like I will invest so much time and effort into something because I want it to be the best thing ever. I'm thinking of like holidays, right? We had a whole episode dedicated to this, that you spend so much energy. You want the kids to love this, and you want your mother to think you did a great job in your new home, and you want your husband to think you're the best wife ever, and you want your friends to say, wow, like you were so creative with this table that you created, and blah, blah, blah. And when it doesn't go that way, you're like, what just happened?
The movie did not play out like you directed it in your brain.
Yeah. And that's, life with kids and a toddler, especially. They don't care what your plans are. They're going to do their own thing anyway. And you kind of find yourself in this fight stage of saying like, no, it's going to work out great. We're going to take this picture
We're happy.
in front of the tree and it's going to like, everybody's going to be fine and happy. And when they're just like, okay, yeah, whatever, like the table looks good. You're like, what do you mean it looks good?
Yes.
Like,
someone like spills they spill their red wine on the tablecloth as soon as they sit down.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we opened all 4 doors. So Kaitie, what I want to know from you. Oh, yeah. I keep doing that.
That's okay.
Maybe I can hear the listener being like, I don't know. I'm opening all the doors, but I'm not closing
not going
any
through
of them.
them.
That's probably that's probably why all my doors are swinging wide open in the wind. So okay, yes, closed door number 4.
So in a fight response, in order to help close the fight response, you have to create containment. So when you're in that space of
tie them to a chair,
you're creating containment with your energy system. So it's like being able to hold the frustration in and connect it to sensation in the body, right? So oftentimes anger and frustration, it feels wild and it feels sort of like, it can feel like a pressure cooker, right? And it's like the lid, like it grows and grows and grows, and then it's almost like it explodes, right? So it's learning how to get a read on that pressure cooker for yourself and create containment and connect it to, when I say containment, I mean, as you're connecting it to sensation, like not sort of lashing out. And again, so with all of these, the stress responses build on each other. So no matter which stress responses you resonate with the most, you always work with freeze first. You always work with fawn next, then flight, then fight. So if, as I'm explaining the like out for fight, if you're like that feels intangible, the reason that it feels intangible is because in order to actually be capable of doing that, your nervous system needs this strong foundation in order to stand on, in order to actually be able to do that. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong or struggle.
This is a lot to take in for people, because for me, I thought I was only 2, and I thought I was like fawn and flight maybe, but I am definitely
You're all of them.
4.
Plus we came up with new ones today, just specifically for you. No, this is helpful though. I'm thinking of this quote that is I've always found powerful in the grief world, that said, I sat with anger long enough until I realized her name was grief. Yeah. And it's like, once you actually breathe the words into existence, and once you are actually able to identify something well enough to name it, that you can tame it, kind of. And that's like how this is feeling. Like,
but it takes time, and people
I knew nothing
impatient
about this coming into this interview, and every single one of the things that you said, like I can identify within me, so that now the next time it's happening, I can say, oh, okay, this isn't depression, or this isn't I'm having a psychotic break, or this isn't my husband or my kids are the problem. This is my response,
blockages,
my nervous system response to what is happening. So let me take that for a second and see how I can close that door, tell myself everything is okay, and then move on with it. So this is really helpful.
Oh, good. I'm so
It's
glad.
been so helpful. Oh my gosh. And then one question we got from Instagram was POTS after pregnancy. I don't know if that's in your wheelhouse.
So
I don't really even know what it is, but I've seen it a lot on social media.
Yeah. So POTS tends.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, I don't know.
So usually nervous system there is nervous system dysregulation going on. And what tends to happen is, as the dysregulation happens, there's like cardiac, issues and usually fainting. What that usually is there's a stress response at some point, in the past, where basically the nervous system hit its threshold of capacity and then collapsed. And then that in time, so when that sort of gets locked in the nervous system, and then in time that develops into POTS. POTS usually will also have parasites. So there's a couple of things there.
And do you have any other questions, G? 'Cause I have one more.
Yeah, just how you felt you could get back to who you truly were.
I think for me, it was a finding myself, right? Like, I think that I never really knew who I was. And I think that I thought that in becoming a mother that I would find myself. Like, I think that I thought that becoming a mom would be part of my identity. And then it was in becoming a mom, I realized that that's actually, kind of backwards. Like, being a mother is something that you do, but it's not who you are, right? Because if you identify motherhood as who you are, then what happens when your kids grow up? Like when they have their own life, and they don't get to become their own people if you're making, if you're putting all of your worth and your identity into being a mom. So I decided to figure out who I was like outside of motherhood and being a mom. And, obviously, I work in attachment, right? So there was like a huge focus still, on the connection between, myself and my kids. And we have, really great relationships, but it was like, okay, I need to find something for me, and so for me, that was starting my business. And I actually started helping moms. Like that was where it began. I started helping moms find themselves. And, and then that led me to trauma healing. And then along the way, figured out who I was and now live my purpose. Right. So I think, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's just, it's everything. I have one last question, and I wish we could end on what you just said because it's so powerful, but I don't want to scare anybody. But how much of nervous system dysregulation or what you feel in your nervous system is translated directly into your baby in utero? That's big. And that is a thing that is really coming to the forefront recently.
A lot of it. A lot of it. So to share like a little bit, when I was pregnant with my second, my husband was hit by a car. He was fine, like he's okay. But him and my son were hit by a drunk driver.
Oh my gosh.
And
so sorry.
Well, thank you. But while I was pregnant, obviously there was a lot of like nervous system dysregulation and like a lot of things going on. My younger son was born with colic, just like crying nonstop. Right. So there's a lot that translates. Also, even after, even after pregnancy and in utero, nervous systems sync up. So nervous systems affect each other. And if you've ever, been in a room if you've ever been dysregulated, right, like you dysregulate the people around you and vice versa. If other people are dysregulated, it will, dysregulate you. So parents' nervous systems actually become the set point for the nervous systems of your children. And once I learned that truth, it was actually what helped me let go of the mom guilt of like focusing on myself and, let me help, heal myself, because it was like, oh no, I'm healing myself for my kids. Because when I changed my nervous system and I changed my set point and I changed my home base, I changed my kids' set point and home base. Right. So it actually allowed me to not make the healing about me. Like it's the most selfish thing that you could ever do.
And it's not just saying like, oh, just relax, chill out, everything's fine, like just be zen. It's like, no, it's very much deeper than just being relaxed and chilled out.
It's like not ever in the history of telling someone to relax did someone relax by telling them to relax.
Yes. Not effective.
Not effective.
But these are definitely things that you need to focus on, especially while pregnant. I mean, there are definitely things that I'm focusing on while pregnant is to worry about what I need to worry about and block out the noise. But question, you said something interesting. If you have a regulated nervous system and somebody is off the rails, will that negate your work or will you lift them up? Which charge is stronger, the negative or the positive?
Yeah.
The positive.
Okay.
But there's sort of a threshold with that, right? So like you can dysregulate each other, but once your nervous system has enough of a baseline of regulation, you will actually create safety and regulation for the people around you when they are dysregulated.
Good news. That is great news.
Yes.
Oh my God. I feel like I've learned so much, and I've been working with Kaitie. I've done 2 sessions with Kaitie so far, and I've learned a ton. But how can people get in touch with you if people don't want to do the one-on-one sessions? How else can they tap into your knowledge and enact it in their lives?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram, on TikTok at Kaitie Childs, 2 I's in Kaitie. And we have a free training on how to close your stress response. And we have a course, Manifest Miracles.
I just took that, which is amazing.
Yeah. It puts all of these things together. So the functional medicine, the closing your stress response, the spirituality, energy piece, it puts all of it together.
And there are illustrations for people who love illustrations.
And then tell us about the one-on-one real quick. How long are your sessions and how much?
1 hour. And I work with clients for 6 months at a time. And so they're 1 hour weekly sessions, currently $14.97 a month. So 6 installments of that.
Great.
I only take on a few one-on-one clients though.
Got it. Okay.
So the really dysregulated
if you really want to dive into this. Yeah. The really dysregulated one, like the brunette over there. Anyway, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for being
so
here.
Much for having me.
I feel like there's going to be lots of questions we may have.
We're going to have you back for sure. We're going to. I didn't get a lot of questions on Instagram. I think after people listen to this episode, they're going to be like, "Ask Kaitie this."
I would love to come back.